Hey there, all you ghouls and goblins. Radio 85.9 proudly presents Horror Zoid with your hosts, Stevie Scares and Natalie Nightmare, talking all things horror from the 80s, 90s, and today. Today's episode is brought to you by Campbell's Crown and Scepter. Here, you drop this, king. Stay groovy with Campbell's Crown and Scepter. Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Horror Zoid. I am Stevie Scares.
And I'm Natalie Nightmare.
And we are talking all things horror from the 80s, 90s, and today. Gonna get this out of the way real quick. For our Halloween month, we are celebrating by telling ghost stories. But we want to hear your ghost stories too. So email us at horrorzoidpod@gmail.com. And we want to read those scary stories. Hit us up on TikTok at horrorzoidpod. Hit us up at horrorzoid.com. We're on Letterboxd now, by the way.
Yes, we are. It's good things to read over there. And yes, send us those stories. We want to have that Halloween episode, and what would be a more fun night to spend with your friends and listening to Horrorzoid read your ghost stories.
100%. Another thing I want to get out of the way, some housekeeping items here. I know a lot of you listen to us on Anchor and on Spotify, but there's a lot of you that are listening to us on iTunes. And if you could do us a huge favor, go on iTunes and give us a review. That is how Horrorzoid grows.
Yes.
We want to grow. We want to keep doing this for you guys. And if you are enjoying this and loving this, hit up iTunes, give us a review. If you have another service that you use, Google, Amazon, and they let you review it, hit us up there too. I know iTunes is the big one though. That is going to help push Horrorzoid to the moon. So we would love to see you show us some love and support on the iTunes.
Listen, subscribe, follow.
Or it's just Apple Podcasts now. Just Apple Podcasts. There's no iTunes.
Yeah, I'm sitting here nodding along as you're talking, not realizing that most people are like, what the fuck is
What's
iTunes?
fucking iTunes? Yeah, we're old. So yeah,
sorry,
iTunes was a thing.
guys.
So Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, give us a review, give us a shout out. We would love to hear it. But yeah, that's how we grow, and we want to grow. We want to keep doing this for you guys.
Absolutely. And to jump right into it, this week's episode, we are talking all about Final Boys and Scream Kings. We are super stoked. Now, obviously, you guys hopefully you've listened to the Final Girls episode. It was one of the first ones we did.
Titled Ladies, if you're looking for it on your podcast app or YouTube, whatever you like to experience it on.
Yes. We talked a lot about, your big icons. You've got your Lori, your Sydney.
Nancy's, Kirsty's.
Yeah. But with the Final Boys, obviously there's getting more love as the years have gone by, but we really started with the Final Girls. But thinking about those big iconic movies that we talked about with our huge iconic Final Girls, you kind of think about it with those main villains, and they're the big villains, and we really want to give them their own episode. So even though some of them, they've done a lot of horror movies, we're going to kind of get onto that, but we're not really going to be going over your big iconic Freddy, Jason, Michael. So that'll be a future episode.
Absolutely. We will talk all about your main iconic villains as we do franchise breakdowns here in the future, as we do special episodes for our Heroes of Horrorzoid, as we are calling it. The Horrorzoid Heroes, we'll definitely talk more about it. But today, it's about what constitutes a Scream King and a Final Boy. Just the same thing constitutes a Scream Queen and a Final Girl. Final Boys gotta make it through a tough, awful, challenging film and be able to live and show that they've survived on the other side. Yeah. Scream Kings, you got to have a good repertoire of horror movies under your belt. We had a very intense discussion before the episode started, our production meeting, if you will, talking about guys who make the cut, guys who don't make the cut. You know, some you will hear about in this episode.
And some that we just want to see more,
Exactly.
I think you phrased that pretty well. And I know we said we weren't going to talk about the big ones, but I am going to start an episode off with someone who's kind of one of my favorite people. All around awesome guy. But if you take away his one iconic role, he's still a Scream King. He's done so much horror, and I'm talking Robert Englund.
Robert Englund definitely deserves to be on this list, even excluding his role as Freddy Krueger. He's been in some heavy-hitting horror movies.
Yeah, yes.
You know, he's played Phantom of the Opera. He's played The Rise of Leslie Vernon, Behind the Mask, and Urban Legends. You know, just to name a few of his iconic appearances. Not even talking about what we just recently saw him in season 4 of Stranger Things.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he is all over the place in horror, even if you take away his biggest role ever in Freddy Krueger.
And even with that, you know, you mentioned the recent season of Stranger Things. There's also the fact that even though he's very briefly in there, I feel like the Netflix Instagram feed made him seem like he was going to be a way bigger part of the show. But I mean, his role is iconic, and I think just, you know, it's fucking Robert. But even the music in the show, you get that cool, almost like high-pitched piano-y Nightmare on Elm Street vibe music, which is really cool. But, you know, again, you know, one of the movies that you showed me actually is 2001 Maniacs. And it's a weird fucking movie, but it's one of his, you know, older horror movies. It's iconic. It's cool. But again, you know, you're saying even without Freddy, he's in so much.
Yeah, 2001 Maniacs is one of my absolute favorite just off-the-wall, bonkers-ass fucking horror movies ever, and I recommend everybody go see it if you love Robert Englund. That's the reason I saw it, is because it has Robert Englund in it. So yeah, I can't recommend that one enough. 2001 Maniacs and all of his other roles definitely make Robert Englund one of the biggest just heroes of the genre. Again, taking out all of the nightmare.
Yeah, and everyone that I know who's met him personally, he's always just such a cool guy, and he absolutely loves his Freddy fans.
That's a bucket list for me. I would love to meet Bob Englund. Like, that's
100%.
I gotta.
There's been so many opportunities, and obviously the last few years, even though things have started to open up, you know, as they say, the pandemic, you know, eases. I'm still pretty anxious. Our new normal. But I'm still pretty anxious about big gatherings, and I feel like I've kind of backed out of a few things because I'm just so anxious. So it's definitely one of those things. The next time a con comes back around Indianapolis, or even a neighboring state, I want to go.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if Robert Englund's there, I will be there front and center.
Yes, absolutely. So kind of shifting to one that I feel like for our generation was a really big icon. Every girl was in love with him, myself included, but you had Devon Sawa.
Devon Sawa is a terrific choice for Scream King's Final Boys. Yeah. He's encapsulates both. Of course, his big role being the Final Destination franchise. You're right. For our generation, Final Destination. We talked about how big The Craft was last week for witches. Final Destination was one of those early 2000s, late 90s, teen, sexy kind of horror movies where, you know, you'd get teenagers would get their mom to drop them off at the movie theater and they'd be able to go see Final Destination.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
at the theater. And that was a big part of being a millennial, was some of those movies like Final Destination and all the shit it taught us to not to do.
Made us, I mean, that's one of my favorite things that I can really connect with. And I love seeing, you know, younger generations see these movies, but everyone fucking knows, if you're my age, if you see a truck carrying tree trunks, you don't drive behind it. And even though something such simple as a railroad track, I was terrified to go over the railroad to go to my grandma's house as a teen because I was terrified of it.
I fucking can't see big neon signs the same way because it was like, this shit's gonna fall, bro.
Exactly. And of course, you know, as the movies go on,
because
it's
of
everything.
Those fucking movies.
Right.
And Devon Sawa, playing the main protagonist of the
gave
first
us the
film,
most tense, terrifying performance of a plane crash ever.
That scene where he's trying to yell at everybody and warn them to get off the plane. I mean, it's like, that's got to be some of his best acting.
Yeah.
But not only that, but he's also been in some other movies that you may know.
One of my favorites, man, Idle Hands.
Idle Hands, who
which,
can forget?
You know,
big stoner horror movie, love it.
Stoner horror movie. Yep. It falls into the teen sexy appeal. You know, you had Jessica Alba in the trailers.
Before she was Jessica Alba.
Right. But everyone was like,
before she was
this
Dark
girl.
Angel.
Yeah, but exactly. But, you know, Idle Hands is one of those, actually, it may have been haunting season, I think, talking about this the other day. You know, it came out like a week and a half after Idle Hands, or I'm sorry, after Columbine.
Right, yeah. Idle Hands came out a week after Columbine.
Yeah.
And received very poor treatment because of that just awful timing.
Yes. And I just remembered it's actually Josh, another Josh on TikTok who's talking about this. I remembered as I was talking about it. But, they're talking about them being able to go to the theater and then before it got pulled from theaters.
Yes.
Because with everything going around with Columbine and then you have this high school and all this crazy shit happen, the movie kind of got released at a really fucked up time. And I think it kind of hurt that movie, but it's such a cult classic. And, you've got all these great scenes of Devon Sawa. You've got Seth Green in that movie. He's like the zombie.
Honorary mention
back.
for Seth Green, Scream King right there. But
right.
Yeah, this is about Devon. We'll get back to
it's
Devon
about
real
Devon,
quick.
But, he's got to have this possessed hand and then he cuts it off and then fights his hand. And you've got a cameo with Offspring
friends.
playing at the dance. And zombie friends and trying to save your kind of girlfriend, Jessica Alba, and a tiny angel.
And
Halloween
Vivica
costume.
A. Fox is running around doing shit for some reason.
That
like
movie,
just fucking bizarre movie.
Yes.
I love it.
And it's so fun and it's so cool. And it, obviously to me, it gives me a little bit of Evil Dead vibes.
It was very Evil Dead.
With the hand. But, he's also coming out in the season 2 for Chucky. I've seen that he's listed on there. And then, of course, he started, one of the things I forgot because I don't think I've seen it since I was a kid. He was in Casper.
Casper.
That's horror gateway movie.
Can I keep you? Oh my God. like that fucking line. I've got a 7-year-old daughter who saw that movie and now her favorite thing to say to people is, can I keep you?
That's pretty fucking creepy.
It's adorable though. It's fucking adorable because it is creepy in the movie because Devon Sawa is this little dead boy who has a crush on a girl who's alive. So he makes the one wish to come back just so he can kiss said alive girl, but it is Christina Ricci, so I kind of give him a pass there.
They're like,
but it is kind of creepy.
They're like dream couple right there.
It is. Devon Sawa, Christina Ricci, Wednesday Addams, and fucking Final Destination King. Yeah, absolutely. Sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, not. I mean, would you almost say he's like kind of one of those ultimates as far as Final Boy goes, because it's not like he's not beating something corporeal, Right.
He's
literally cheating death and getting away with it.
Final Destination, though, we could talk about Final Destination for hours, and we will do a franchise breakdown at some point. But yeah, like that plot alone is just it catapulted that movie into another
it like a roller coaster off a track.
Like a fucking there you go, right there. But it propelled it into the sky.
Yes.
Like an airplane. But it really did. That plot carried it so far, and it made Devon Sawa a bigger star than he already was, because he was kind of a teen heartthrob with Casper.
I mean, that's why I rented the movie.
Yeah, what was the one movie he did? Wild America with Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Oh God,
yeah.
see JTT. He's another poster boy for me.
But Devon Sawa was just kind of this teen star. It's almost like Final Destination was his way of stepping into more adult roles.
Yeah.
And it really worked because I mean he got so much work off of just his success as the main protagonist in that series. Yeah. So I mean it's just like it really put him into, I think that put him into the A-list as a star.
And even though I was a teen whenever it came out, I know I didn't see it in theaters. It was probably one of those my mom, being a conservative family, didn't let me go see. But I probably talked her into renting it somehow, because I remember sitting down, I was watching it alone in the living room.
That's how we saw movies back in the day, was we convinced our mom to let us rent it at Blockbuster.
But this one's Devon Sawa. He was in this cute teen movie about football. But, so I remember renting it, sitting down to watch it by myself. I think my mom was in the other room working on something, completely, oblivious to what I'm watching. And I remember I had to pause it after the plane crash scene and walk away for a second.
It's a hard one.
Because, I hadn't seen a lot, again, conservative family. So there was stuff that I'd see, but it was pretty limited even at that time. And that scene was just so terrifying.
It's jarring.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And again, a big part of that goes to the performance of Devon Sawa. Like, that scene is just so intense. Like, even sitting here as a 33-year-old adult man, like, seeing that kid, Devon Sawa was at the time, jumping through, telling everybody, we got to get off the plane. Like, it just resonated so much because you felt the danger of the situation.
Yeah.
And he's such a terrific actor. Like, That's why when you mentioned Devon Sawa as somebody you wanted to mention, I was like, fucking 100%. He deserves all the credit in the world just for that role alone, let alone the other, not to mention the other stuff we mentioned too.
Right. And he's definitely one of those, I think, with the movies that really, for our age, we're pretty similar. He's a little older, but, for me as a teen wanting to see his movies and stuff, I think he's got one of those faces that your mom's like, yeah, sure, let's go ahead and watch it.
You kind of touched upon that earlier, and I kept thinking, I'm like, oh my God, he is a final boy because he's like the pretty final girl because he's just a very attractive man. He was like, he's such a pretty boy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I see it. Like, he is very Jamie Lee Curtis.
Not to mention the covers for those were similar to like any other teen movie coming out.
Yeah, except his had half a skull. Remember, it was him and half a skull.
Yeah, I don't know how. I'm glad my mom let me rent that one. Thanks, Mom. But
Mama Sue's for the win.
I'm trying to think. I'm horrible about what year that movie came out.
Final Destination. It was 99.
99.
Yeah, it was like 98, 99. Yeah.
Okay, because see, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, kind of shifting into the next ones that we wanted to talk about briefly, because one of them does barely qualify for this episode. But I saw Scream the year it came out.
Yeah.
I was probably too fucking young to watch that movie, but somehow we watched it, and my mom was fine with it. I think it was just not enough to be upset, but I think I was still like 11.
Oh, for Scream. Yeah, Scream. Yeah.
Yeah. And, but you've got Skeet and Matthew.
Yeah.
And sorry, Skeet, we love you. And you're barely.
Skeet was the one. When Natalie
movies.
brought him up, I said, fuck Skeet. And I love Skeet to death. But he is not a Scream King, and he's not a final boy.
Yeah.
Sydney shoots him in the fucking head, so he's not a final boy.
Right.
He's barely a Scream King because he's appeared in both Scream movies, and he's done some like horror thriller type shit along the way. But I'm sorry, I had to give Skeet the axe. He doesn't make the cut.
Yeah,
but
and
Matthew,
it's interesting though, because we talked about that, and I know, I'm sorry I cut you off. We're about to get to Matthew, which is like all of our lovers. We just want him. Everyone wants him.
Have mercy.
Have mercy. But Skeet is one of those that, he's done a lot of movies, and, the other big one is a movie we also talked about last week, The Craft.
Right.
And he, for some reason, he's credited for Cursed, but we don't know what or where or
we
why.
just watched Cursed literally a week ago, and neither one of us could sit there and be like, fucking Skeet was in that? Where? Right. Where? If you listen to this, please hit us up on TikTok, on Gmail, whatever, and tell us where the fuck Skeet was in fucking Cursed, because I need to know. Couldn't tell you.
I really need to know. And, for any of you who also have the guilty pleasure of watching Riverdale, he plays Daddy Serpent. So, you've kind of got some horror in that show, but it's barely, it's like a teen thriller drama. So
he's
difficult to put on here, but we both agreed, because Ghostface is so iconic, and I love seeing the way it's grown, because I remember the insanity when that movie came out and how feral people were for the Halloween costumes.
Oh, yeah.
And, you still have that now. People are, me including all of these others, hunting Walmart and Dollar General for the mask. Everyone's sharing them on TikTok. Everyone wants these Ghostface masks and all these alternate versions. And, you got the one from Scary Movie that people are seeing at Dollar General, and you have all the Dead by Daylight ones. But, he's so iconic as Skeet and Matthew as Ghostface that Skeet just has to be on here.
Yeah, I'm okay with mentioning Skeet as long as we give all the glory to Matthew. That be Matthew.
Yes.
Matthew Lillard, of course, most iconic in the horror world because he is, he's Stu Macher, one of the original Ghostface portraying characters in the Scream franchise. And he has had cameos in several of the films. He's admitted that he's put on the Ghostface suit as a stunt performer for some of the scenes during some of the kills.
Yep.
Just for that alone, the fact that he appears in all of the Scream movies and we never even fucking knew it is tremendous.
Yeah.
But he's also done what was the fucking 13 Ghosts. I don't know why I couldn't think of 13 Ghosts. I love 13
I was like,
Ghosts.
you mentioned one earlier. I was trying to think of what you mentioned.
No,
and
but yeah,
you were trying
13,
to think of what I mentioned.
13 Ghosts is
13
is,
Ghosts,
and,
which everybody loves that.
and of course he plays Shaggy in Scooby-Doo, which if you don't consider that horror, then fuck you, it's horror.
I mean, it is. It's just for kids.
It's actually a folk horror movie, but that's another story for another time. But Matthew Lillard, yes, of course, he originally plays Stu. Came back in several cameos. The Scream franchise, I think, will be his legacy to us that identify as horror fans. Like, that's the place he holds in our heart. And what's funny is he's one of those actors, because he has such an impressive resume outside of the genre, you know, he means so much to us as horror fans, but he means just as much to other people. You know, kids who saw him as Shaggy for Scooby-Doo, and it wasn't a horror thing to them. It was just more of a cartoon.
Mine was
come to life.
Steve, SLC Punk.
SLC Punk, that's
that
another
movie
one.
made me like absolutely, you know, destroyed. So like, it's, you know, he's a great actor on so many levels.
He is.
But he's also really campy when he needs to be. Like, he's so over the top as Stu. You know, he's always like sticking his tongue out and like being...
Let's face it, your mother was no Sharon Stone. Oh my God. He's just so over the top.
And he's the same way in 13 Ghosts. But then I also, you watch SLC Punk and it's totally opposite.
Flips the script and is a completely different type of character.
And it goes to show he knows how to deliver in a way that is fitting for a horror movie. And not that he's exactly like Stu in all of them, but Matthew himself he's just this awesome broad spectrum. And I just want to see him in more horror movies. I just wish he would do more.
I wish and what's funny you say that is I remember the last thing I read about Matthew Lillard is he started a production company.
Yeah.
And their first production is, I think it's a vampire movie. It's a horror movie. It's so funny that I would love to see him come back to a horror movie as well, but it looks like he's going to be more behind the scenes for horror, which I'm totally in favor of.
Yeah.
Because if there's anybody who's got to have taste, it's got to be, you know, this guy who's worked with some of the best creative minds in the world, with Wes Craven, James Gunn, all these just terrific people. I trust.
And I feel like he knows what people want.
Oh, I that's the thing. I trust he knows what everybody is looking for.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see what he does with his new production company. I hope he steps in front of the camera in some of these movies, if not at least one, because he's such a treasure, not just to us as horror fans, like I said, but if you ask 10 different people your favorite Matthew Lillard movie, they're gonna say. All 10 people will have a different answer, because they're like, I remember seeing him in Without a Paddle.
Oh my God! See, I was gonna say it's kind of like one of those. I'm trying to think. The most popular one I always see is like, you can tell so much about a person by the first Tim Curry movie they saw.
Yes, I love that too.
And I feel like you could almost say that with him, because for me it was Scream. That's my first movie with him. I mean, if there was anything before then, it wasn't enough for me to remember. I was, I was young enough already with Scream. And I think probably second would be SLC Punk. But there's so many other people who'd be like Scooby-Doo, because they were kids when that movie came out. I was a teenager. I didn't see that movie till years after it came
I
out.
think Without a Paddle was one of the first ones I remember seeing with him. And that's one of his later movies when you think about it.
Yeah.
Because his career started, he started so young. But, for somebody being as young as he was when that movie came out, and seeing where he is now, and he's just come light years ahead of his acting and his performance, his commitment to these roles.
And he's like all-time great person.
Right. And he just is a terrific human being to boot, at least that we know of.
Yeah.
He just is what we love about the horror genre.
Yeah.
He is the perfect villain, but at the same time, he is a genuinely good human being. It's crazy. Those people always make the best villains, they say, and I think he's proof positive.
And you say that, and I think I'm kind of looking at my little notes here, and you're talking about someone who's this amazing person.
I already know who you're coming with.
Who? Take a guess.
I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's work.
Yes, absolutely. Bill Moseley, fucking Otis Driftwood.
Driftwood. Have
He's
we
like
not? I don't
just
think
one
we've
of the
done really
most-
anything on an episode where we've talked about our love of Bill
No,
Moseley. So you're about to hear it.
There was, I think, a few episodes ago, I said his name for one reason or the other. I think it was maybe when we were talking about Sherry.
Probably.
And I was kind of like, we'll talk about him later because we love him. Yes, we do. He's another one that we could have met this year. Things kind of didn't happen. We didn't go to the con to do that. But he's one of those people that I absolutely want to meet. But I can say that my amazing husband did get me a cameo because Bill Moseley is on Cameo for my birthday last year. And if you hadn't seen these Bill Moseley's cameos, he will put on a wig and talk like Otis for the cameo.
He will talk like Otis. He will talk like
Yes.
fucking Chop Top.
Like Chop Top.
If you're
Yeah.
looking for a great gift for somebody, get them a fucking Bill Moseley
Yes.
cameo, because what Natalie's getting at is not only did he do his quotes, but he also connected with us
Yeah.
on such a personal level for having never met us, never not known us. I just gave him some brief info
You
about
get
Natalie
like
and her
2
birthday.
sentences to send for
And
Cameo.
he was able to speak to us in a way that made me feel like I've known this man for years. And I've never met him before in my life.
And he knew literal minimal information.
Right.
It's like
He's just
Natalie,
like-
wife, birthday, age. Like, we really like Chop Top and Otis. And it's like, that's about it.
That's really all I was able
You
to
know,
say.
Cameo doesn't let you write a fucking letter to these
Yeah,
people. It just lets you give enough information. And, you know, he hands me his phone to show it. And I mean, it made me cry. He's not only because my husband is amazing, got me this really awesome gift, but also Bill was just so cool about my birthday and, you know, giving these movie quotes. And I know everyone, anytime I post any kind of like Otis appreciation, people are like, he's the greatest person I've ever known. And I mean, if you follow him on Instagram, videos of him making rice in his kitchen, it doesn't take much to realize he's just this adorable, sweet, fucking older man.
But that is not who he is on fucking screen. When we're talking Chop Top and Otis Driftwood alone.
Otis is one of the most revolting characters.
Vile,
Disgusting.
fucking vitriol spewing,
And
fucking
I
disgusting
fucking
characters.
love him.
And I would die for this man.
Yes.
You don't understand Otis Driftwood, and probably because Bill Moseley is such a likable fucking human being,
Yeah.
you are able to connect with this psychopath
Yeah.
of a fucking character in a way that I don't think it makes sense to normal people who don't
Right.
watch horror movies.
Yeah.
If you don't watch horror movies, you don't understand the love we have for a
Yeah.
character like fucking Otis
Right.
and his mania, and just the appreciation we have for somebody like Rob Zombie to
Yeah.
write a character like this, and for Bill Moseley to bring the other 50%, bring that fucking character to life.
But let's talk about the real character for Bill Moseley and Rob Zombie's movies. The news anchor.
Oh, his cameo is the fucking news anchor too. Like perfect
Yeah.
symmetry of right before we see him
I think
cutting
I'd watch-
bitches up and kidnapping bitches and tying them up in his room. Before we even see that, we see him as, I'm Lance Brockman.
Yeah.
And here's the 10 o'clock news. And it's fucking, and he's just.
And I think we had watched that movie so many times before, and it's like his voice is so obvious.
you just
once
hear
it
the
clicks.
voice.
But I feel like, you know, it's kind of one of those passing moments in a movie that you almost tune out and don't really like absorb as you're watching because of the way the transitions are.
Well, and we already know that he's got the girls are kidnapped.
Right.
We already know. We've seen
Exactly.
enough like teasers from Rob Zombie in the first half of the movie to know
Yeah.
that those girls are with the Firefly family.
Right.
But yet we have to see this little interjection. Why? Because it's Bill
Because
fucking
it's Bill
Moseley,
Moseley.
giving us a terrific cameo as Lance Brockman.
And, you know, you're talking about Zombie and him, and you had this funny name earlier when we were writing all these people down. You called all of these guys from the Rob Zombie movies the Zomboys.
The Zomboys, because once you start talking about one, you can't help but domino effect into all the other guys,
Yeah.
these terrific men that we need to show appreciation for in these Rob Zombie films. They are his Zomboys.
Zomboys. Starting with Sid Haig.
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Sid Haig, what can you say about Sid Haig that hasn't already been said? He is an icon, and I think we use that word a lot, but he really is,
Yeah.
like, to us.
But there are
like,
so many icons.
there
We
are-
have a lot of
yeah.
icons, and that's okay.
But Sid just represents something special.
Yeah.
He, you know, and not just his roles that he's given us, like Spaulding, but like him personally, he's another one who, he was an actor in all these blaxploitation films. He got tired of being typecast as like the evil white guy in these blaxploitation films, so he retired. And it wasn't until a call from Quentin Tarantino. I may not like Quentin Tarantino as a filmmaker, but I what he did for Sid Haig cannot be, understated. And he got Sid Haig back, and then from there, Rob Zombie called Sid, got him for Captain Spaulding, which is why we all, I think, love Sid Haig because of his performance as Captain Spaulding.
Well, and you also can see, the impression he's had on the people he's worked with. It's, I always see, Rob and Sherry and Bill, all of these people sharing pictures whenever they were together at conventions.
That's not even to mention the fans that are also posting stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, there's such a love for him, out of Captain Spaulding too, because everywhere you look, people are doing artwork or they're cosplaying or they're crossplaying and all of these things. It's so cool to see, and he's just one of our iconic clowns.
Let me ask you something. How come you ask us so many jackassy questions? Oh my God. Hit that, like, that scene, his delivery there when he's fucking with Rainn Wilson's character. Oh God, it is terrific. That scene is it's jarring, it's scary, but it's also fucking hilarious at the same time. Like, that's what Sid was able to do from my perspective as a fan, is he brought, like with Bill Moseley, I can't put my finger on it why he brings this weird likability to Otis and Chop Top. But with Sid, I can 100% put my finger on it. It's because he adds this humor, this tinge of humor to everything that he does. He could be saying the most sadistic, maniacal shit, and you're still going to crack a smile.
You like blood?
You like violence? Freaks of nature? He's terrific.
Yeah, everything he says. And even, from the beginning where, they're just standing in the shop talking, and the guy walks
Michael
to
J. Pollard. I love that scene too.
And the Michael J. Pollard's character goes to the bathroom, and he like pulls the little skull thing on his bow tie and does the hey.
Yeah.
And it's like, even just that, it's like there's literally no one there to watch him, and he fucking does it.
Right. And I feel like that's like, I don't know this, because I've watched some of the behind the scenes stuff, but I don't remember enough to know if this is true or not, but I could just see Sid, that was just a Sid thing. Yeah. That looks like that was something that he would just do.
Yeah.
Not
because they've talked Spaulding, a lot about, improv lines in a lot of zombies movies. And
right. And he trusted Sid to
one of
to
my
do that. Yeah.
weirdly favorite ones also comes from another Zomboy in 3 from Hell, whenever he plays Foxy, is Richard fucking Brake.
Foxy.
Doomhead.
Yep. And Doomhead. We recently saw him as Orlok in The Munsters.
Yes. And he was the flashback for the serial killer for Smile.
No, not Smile. Barbarian. Sorry. We've seen a lot of movies this month.
Yeah. And we saw both of those like the same day.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. But yes, Richard Brake, another guy who needs appreciation for Scream Kings and Final Boys. But I think Doomhead is the one that stands out to me the most. Just that monologue at the beginning of 31 that he has, where we are introduced to Doomhead first and foremost. That alone just killed it.
For sure. He's pretty, the dialogue for him through most of the movie is just phenomenal. You get all these little layers and his psychotic shit that he says in between. But his dialogues, if you kind of separate them and isolate them, are really, really cool.
Oh, yeah. You talk about his witty dialogue during his infamous sex scene. Yeah, that's some tremendous soliloquy shit there. But I do love the candor that he has as Doomhead. I think he has this arrogance about him, yet this refined quality in his rage. Like when he says, "I'm a gentleman of war."
Right. I was about to say he's gentlemanly, and he literally says that. Yeah. And he plays dirty a lot, but there are these weird moments where he's like, "I'll give you a minute to, mourn over your fallen soldier." Yeah. And he kind of tries to give people a chance
after he punches himself in the fucking face in the bathroom to psych himself up.
Yeah, and I think, you're talking about the opening. Besides the fact that you don't know who the fuck he's talking to for
Oh,
the
God.
first minute of the dialogue.
Yeah.
And he's just addressing you, staring you down. It's a stark
It's
black
very
and
first
white.
person.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful and stunning opening for a movie. I know a lot of people really love Doomhead. I feel like people shit on 31 the most as far as his roles, but I think Doomhead's pretty amazing. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, you have Foxy, who comes into kind of like a Firefly family ally in 3 from Hell. And he's just this really fun...
A fucking skull in my eye.
And got a piece of fucking skull in my eye. Yeah, he's awesome. I really liked him side by side with Bill Moseley.
Yeah, he was the only person I think it would have been appropriate for him to pick up the mantle that Sid was handing down.
They did try to keep that kind of like 3 people together the way they did in Devil's
they're like
Rejects.
the unholy trinity.
Yeah.
They've come up with so many names for them just to not call them the unholy trinity when that's what they are. Even though I'm pretty sure Rondo and the other guy played by DDP say we're the unholy too.
Yeah.
So it's funny. It's like they found every way not to call them the unholy trinity.
Yeah,
But
honestly.
yes, yeah. Richard Brake does phenomenal picking up where Sid Haig left off. Kind of this passing of the torch moment when Captain Spaulding is executed and Foxy is brought in helping Otis escape from prison. I mean, it was just absolutely a wonderful hand down.
Well, you're talking about the prison escape stuff too, and one of the people that I love that I felt like this may have been the first one he was in for Zombie, Jeff Daniel Phillips in 3 from Hell as like the prison warden.
Well, no, 31 came before 3 from Hell, and he was also in Halloween 2 and Lords of Salem and all that.
Well, I'm all fuckered up with my dates, so I for some reason couldn't place what was first. But he's another one of the Zomboys. He's in a lot of movies. Obviously, he was recently
we love
in the
some
Munsters.
Jeff Daniel Phillips. Yes,
from caveman to Rob Zombie horror movie icon. He's a delight. And I mean, I guess he's kind of a final boy in Lords of Salem.
He is.
He doesn't get drug into it.
Nope.
But
He's safe because it's affecting the women of the town, so he is spared because he is a lowly man peasant.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jeff Daniel Phillips, one of my more recent favorites that Rob Zombie has introduced. People like Bill Moseley have been with him forever.
Yeah.
So to see Jeff Daniel Phillips kind of pick up where Bill left off, that's another passing of the torch moment there too, with Bill Moseley and Jeff Daniel Phillips being in 3 from Hell together when they've Bill used to be Rob Zombie's boy. Now Jeff Daniel Phillips is Rob Zombie's boy. And, like you pointed out that I think I talked over you. He recently, most recently played Herman Munster in the revival of the Munsters.
We were really excited.
Oh, Jeff Daniel Phillips definitely gets us excited.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes people probably listen to this and they're like, God, they interrupt each other a lot. No, we're just neurodivergent. I hope you like it here.
Yeah. This is just how we talk to each other on a normal basis. No need to worry.
Not at all.
But it's yes, Bill Moseley, Jeff Daniel Phillips, Sid Haig, and Richard Brake, the Zomboys. I think you got the Brat Pack. Then now you've got the Zomboys.
Yes, I think that's a perfect way to say it.
Yep.
Now, I think with the kind of discussion of clowns with Rob Zombie and Sid Haig, I want to shift to a love of my life, Bill Skarsgård.
Bill Skarsgård. Yeah, it's funny to sit here and say he's the Scream King because he was almost, up until recently, he was just kind of a villain.
Yeah.
He was Pennywise, and he really just took that torch from Tim Curry and said, I'm gonna fuck shit up.
Yeah.
And he did. He fucked with all of our minds.
Yeah. And
as
I think
Pennywise.
He's safe to say, I love that he's so good. It even brings up the debate whenever people ask Bill or Tim. And, because he has done such this amazing portrayal as Pennywise. And I loved all of the late night interviews of just him without all the makeup on, showing how he does that freaky ass fucking smile.
Oh my God, the freaky smile, the eye thing.
Yeah,
how he does all of it himself. It was all just practically him.
Yeah, he's he's a delight. And, you know, obviously recent movie that we recently talked about on the podcast was he was in Barbarian.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about. It was up until recently he was mainly a villain. He
Yeah.
would have been in that iconic villain status, but he has since transitioned into now being a Scream King and a Final Boy, in addition to all the other hats that he's picked
Yeah.
up. But we've seen him in television series like Castle Rock.
Yeah.
And he's done well with that. Hemlock Grove was another one I
Hemlock
know
Grove,
you
really
watched.
fucking weird.
Yep.
I think I only picked it up because of him, and I
Right.
heard there was a really cool werewolf transformation. It's okay, but yeah, I mean, and it's funny that you say villain because he was in the movie I think is titled Villains, correct?
With Maika Monroe.
With Maika Monroe, which
Yes.
is a fun little thriller movie with a lot of twists and turns. Very
Not
good
necessarily
movie.
horror, but definitely in the thriller category for
Yeah.
sure, with those horror elements. But yes, Bill Skarsgård again, villainous persona.
And
but
his
yes,
recents, we've heard that he's going to be in Nosferatu as well as The Crow.
right. We know he will be Eric Draven. He
Mm-hmm.
will be picking up where Brandon Lee left off. It's like he's funny. He's taking these legacy roles and he's just
And I hope
running
he's
away with them.
Orlok. I mean, he's got to be Orlok, right?
Oh yeah. Well, it's Robert Eggers directing it, so I know everybody is hoping for Defoe to be Orlok. Now
Right.
that would be pretty impressive. But Bill Skarsgård, regardless of what role he has in this Robert Eggers Nosferatu, it's only further cementing the fact that he is a horror icon at
Yeah.
this point. He is
is.
one of our most beloved.
Yeah. And, you know, not the only one in his family. I also love Alexander Skarsgård.
Alexander has ties to horror.
Yeah.
With True Blood, and of course recently Godzilla versus Kong,
The Northman.
The Northman with Robert Eggers,
Yep.
as we just mentioned. So yeah, Alexander Skarsgård has definitely carved out a little niche for himself as well.
Yeah.
But Bill, unfortunately, Bill has taken the mantle.
I say it's weird because I
In
was
horror.
I lived through in real time the True Blood hype.
Yeah.
I was a Fang banger, bought True Blood, Team Eric all the way, but he was really, really popular while True Blood was on, and I think a lot of people still kind of shift towards movies that he stars in because of them being fans of
Wasn't
True
he
Blood.
Tarzan?
He was Tarzan in a really, I think, bad Tarzan movie, which probably mostly women were just saying, Alexander Skarsgård shirtless. Yeah. And
That seems like something the 50 Shades people were like, yeah, your mom is going to want to fuck this guy. So,
yeah, he's a
we're going to make
beautiful...
$50 million in the first weekend.
Exactly. And I think that's probably the only reason it made any money at all was because of him. But I feel like with Pennywise being such a icon in horror, Bill's definitely shifted a lot into the spotlight.
Yeah, Bill has so quickly taken this role of a darling in the horror community on. Because it came out in 2017, and before I think Hemlock Grove was probably slightly before that.
Yeah, I think a little
But
bit before.
It's like that's less than 10 years that he's been around, and he's already just propelled himself into this status of
Yeah.
being this huge horror iconic figure.
Well, and something cool with him too, it kind of leads us into some final boys here. You know, he worked side by side with some amazing young stars who have since, you know, grown and are continuing to do horror. You have Finn Wolfhard and Jaden Martell from It. And obviously Jaden, he's got a new Stephen King one, Mr. Harrigan's Phone, I think is on Netflix. We love The Lodge.
The Lodge is
We'll
one of
talk
our
about that on a
absolute
Christmas
favorites.
special, I'm sure. You know, he's amazing in that, and I want to see him do more. And obviously Finn Wolfhard with Stranger Things. I know he did that not so great movie, The Turning, and you know, plenty more. But
he's more than made up for it with Ghostbusters. Come
Ghostbusters,
on. Yeah.
like how cool is it to say you were in Stranger Things, you were a Ghostbuster for Halloween, and then you were in Ghostbusters. Like,
Yeah.
that's cool as fuck. Like, Finn Wolfhard,
He's living his best life,
he
and
is.
I commend him.
And, you know, they're final boys alone just with It. You know, they make
Right.
it. You know, obviously Wyatt Olaf, who I would love to see do more. not quite a final boy if you think about the long run with it.
Unfortunately,
But
yes. Yeah.
also, it and Stranger Things are both full of amazing young stars. I'm spacing the name of the young boy that plays Georgie, but even he went and did a couple of other horror movies.
Robert Jackson.
Yes.
Yeah.
He did that Lock and Key, which I think is kind of like a spooky show on Netflix.
Yeah, we watched a few episodes. Wasn't for us. But
yeah, I couldn't.
He's a great performer.
I would say everyone in it was great. Just something about it didn't hook me.
Yeah.
And then what was the Prodigy?
The Prodigy.
Yeah.
God, well, you and I love The Prodigy.
It was a wild ride. I know a lot of people shit on it, but I think there's something.
We saw that in theaters. One of the last movies we really get to see in theaters before the pandemic. One of those last few movies.
And it's got some great jump scares and some really weird lines, which I feel like I really hope they didn't make him say. You never see him say it, but there's like some vulgar shit.
Some super vulgar shit. But yeah,
he's another one that I would love to see continue to do horror movies.
He's doing a lot of horror.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So a lot of, I feel like these are going to be some of the young generation that we see grow up into our iconic Scream
I
Kings.
think these are the next generation. I think we are definitely witnessing that with the kids from Stranger Things, the kids from It.
Yeah.
Finn Wolfhard being the bridge between them. I think he is carrying that title and assuming that role of like leading this next generation of Scream Kings and Scream Queens and Scream Theys.
Yeah.
I think he's really he's spearheading it, and I love it because he's a great example for these kids. I think
I agree.
He's showing himself to be a wonderful person, and he's got final boy energy all around him.
And I mean, I know this is all about the boys for this episode, but you kind of have to mention too, Sophia Lillis has, planted herself as a young Scream Queen. And I feel like, all the girls in Stranger Things too, I would love to see. There's so much cool excitement with the new young generations of horror, even with seeing, the newer shows like Fear Street and Hocus Pocus 2.
And we haven't seen Bodies, but that's supposed to be a great cast of some newcomers.
And Midnight Club looks like, it's kind of a young teen thing.
Scream from 2022 introduced us to a lot of great actors I think will have bright futures in the horror genre. Yeah, it's
kind of exciting because I feel like this episode could be a time capsule we listen to 10 years later and we're like, oh wow, well McKenna Grace is like won a fucking Oscar now,
right?
Like,
right. That would be the coolest thing if these kids who are carrying these horror franchises right now and these horror properties, if they go on to the greatness that we think they're capable of, then we are witnessing the beginning of the next big heavyweights of Hollywood.
Which I have to segue that into one who he's a little older, but he's still young, and I think everyone in this movie deserved a fucking Oscar, but Alex Wolff, I want to see him in everything. He's amazing.
And of course, the movie you're talking about is Hereditary. That is...
he went hard, literally traumatized himself doing the movie. There's so much he had to work through. The scene in the school, he, actually broke his nose doing that scene. But just the performance and the dynamic that him and Toni Collette have on screen are phenomenal. But also a movie that I was really surprised with was Old, from M. Night Shyamalan.
I was going to say, if you don't talk about Old, I will, because that movie fucked with me psychologically. And fuck the fan, fuck everybody who's like, oh, I saw that shit coming a mile away. Bro, there's no fucking way you see what that movie had coming at all.
I mean, you start to understand, the people on the beach, they're aging rapidly. Like, you can figure some of that out, but the things that happen, you just don't. And I'm not
ready for it. I don't care who you are. You're not ready for the shit that happens in Old.
But the thing is about it, though, is Alex Wolff does so good because whenever he doesn't start in the movie. So, of course, everyone who's seen the trailer, a lot of you have seen it. If you haven't, spoilers. but everyone that is on this beach, they start to age rapidly. So this little boy turns into a teenager who's
Alex Wolff
by Alex Wolff, but the mentality is still almost of that of a 5-year-old, because while they're aging, their minds don't quite go with it.
So Alex Wolff has to play a 5-year-old.
And it's so, I know that sounds really fucking weird, but it's so brilliant how he quote unquote ages through the movie,
how
and how
he
his
progresses
mind
and matures in the rapid aging. It's mind-boggling, his performance.
And I think that's so underrated for the movie.
It is. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of really scary things. The deaths in that movie are absolutely fucking gnarly. The twist at the end, you're like, I don't know how to feel about this. And everything along the way is just really, it's wild and unexpected, and the camera work makes you uncomfortable.
It really does.
The brightness of the beach makes you uncomfortable.
M. Night Shyamalan came back to mindfuck me all over again.
So,
I let him in once with Sixth Sense, and I regretted it ever since. I let him in again for The Visit, regretted that, and now here we are with Old.
Fucking Visit.
Fucking M. Night Shyamalan will just do that to you.
Yeah.
But yes, Alex Wolff, his performance in Old, his performance in Hereditary, and if you're sitting here and you're like, oh, I don't know him from either of those movies, Jumanji, he was in the Jumanji movies. That doesn't add, it's not horror, but if you're sitting here like, who's Alex Wolff?
No, but I got dragged to the theater for that second one, and I was like, it's the fucking Hereditary kid. That's all I could think of.
We were sitting here sitting here watching him. We just thought about him, smashing his fucking face against a desk in a classroom.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny. He's starting to be known for more than horror.
Yeah.
Which is really cool to see. Because he has been, since Hereditary, become one of our favorite young actors.
Yeah.
He's another one of that future generation.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think this is his time. I think he's in the prime of his career, and I think he's fucking riding that rocket to the top, and I'm excited to be on the ride with him.
I want to see more amazing performances from him, because while the other one isn't quite horror, it's still kind of like a drama tension movie, but he was also in a movie called Pig.
We love Pig in this house.
It's such a good movie, but only main
we
reason...
thought it was a horror movie. What the fuck?
I was thinking it was a horror movie just the way I kept seeing it advertised, but it's not. It's like a drama thriller, but he's
with a
in
little
it.
Violence,
great.
But it's not horror violence.
No, not at all.
That's the fucked up thing.
But it stars who we wanted to kind of shift to next, which is Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas fucking Cage.
Like, how can we not talk about him? He's had some amazing fucking horror movies the last few years.
If you didn't think we were going to get to Nicolas fucking Cage in this episode, you were mistaken. He is a goddamn treasure in this house.
Would you say a national treasure?
Oh, a national fucking treasure. I'd trade the Declaration of Independence for him. Absolutely. Yeah. Nicolas Cage has had this impressive streak.
He's had a death grip on me lately.
Oh my God. Obviously our generation, we grew up with him. He was this action star. The Rock.
Oh my God.
Con Air.
Yeah.
Face Off. I'm going to take his face
off.
Yes.
Put the bunny back in the box.
Oh God. He was iconic. And of course, movies even going farther back, like Raising Arizona and Vampire's Kiss.
Never thought. First off, that movie's fucking wild, and I forgot even about it until you mentioned it, because technically it's a horror movie.
Right, that's one of his earliest
it's
works.
Really fucking weird. There's some odd trigger warnings you want to expect.
Very odd trigger warnings.
But that is the movie where you get him yelling the ABCs. So if anything, just watch that.
And then of course we have fucking Wicker Man.
Yeah.
Not
the bees.
Not the bees. Not the bees.
Which, the original is such an iconic masterpiece, and then you got
this
whatever that Wicker Man
what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Like, Christopher Lee shit on that movie, and rightfully so, but God damn it,
we
got
all
some
love
great
to make
Cage.
fun of it.
We got some great Nick Cage in that movie.
And he did I know he's more of the dark character, but even doing Ghost Rider, you've got these kind of horror elements in those movies, but it's like, I feel like my skull's on fire. Like, I love
that campiness, which is straight horror.
And
I don't care what you say.
It is. You have the camp, and he does it so well, and sometimes he's just him and it's campy. But the thing is what's fun about those, and this is another hill I will die on, is even though he can be absolutely out of place as a role in a movie. There's something so fun about watching it, and just like the fucking one-liners and shit that they seem to give him in every movie just makes it fun. And if you can't enjoy
but it's
them,
his delivery.
right. But you gotta just be able to enjoy them. Like,
right.
Are they good movies? Most of the time, no.
Absolutely fucking not.
But they're good movies.
Which sounds like a line from Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent now that I think about it, which is, of course, the movie where he plays Nick Cage.
But he also has amazing roles. Mandy.
Phenomenal. How he didn't get an Oscar for that fucking
You ripped my shirt!
Ripped my shirt.
It's such a fucking wild movie. And also,
bonkers,
you
bananas.
get a moment of Richard Brake. But,
you
you get a fucking chainsaw fight, and you get people lit on fire, and you get cults and wild music and visuals.
Demon biker gangs?
Yeah, like fucking Cenobite biker-looking motherfuckers. I love Mandy.
Mandy is...
Not to mention the Cheddar Goblin.
Mandy may be one of the most perfect films ever created, and it is in a class of its own.
It really is
so bizarre. And Nick fucking Cage, show some fucking respect and put the fuck on his name. Nick fucking Cage just cages the hell out of this movie.
Yeah,
I shit you not, there is a 5 to 10 minute scene. I lose track of time watching this scene where he's just going ballistic in a bathroom with a bottle of alcohol in his underwear. He is
just screaming, going nuts, and then it goes all into a crazy ass fight.
But I'm hooked this whole fucking scene of him going unhinged in the bathroom by him fucking self.
It's amazing. I think a lot of people that haven't seen Mandy know that scene because they've just seen the still of him with the kind of baseball tee where it's like got like the red sleeves or whatever with the tiger on it. He's in his tidy whities, he's covered in blood, and he's got like a bottle of scotch, and he's just like like fucking screaming. And I think so many people saw that and were just like, I don't fucking even know what this is, but okay.
Yeah.
And, we watched it. We loved it. The score is amazing. He's amazing. It's a wild movie. But then he also did, and I'm trying to think if this was a Shudder original, Color Out of Space.
Color Out of Space, I believe it was a Shudder original. But it was Lovecraft, obviously, one of the most true adaptations of Lovecraft that we've had in recent times.
Eldritch horrors.
Yes, very, very much so.
Another wild, colorful movie with Cage, but also get some really cool practical effects, body horror that kind of made me think of John Carpenter's The Thing, honestly, when I saw it.
That's cosmic horror for you. I mean, we could do a whole episode on Nicolas Cage, and we will. I assure you, as long as I am here, we are going to do a whole episode on Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
But we've got some other Final Boys and Scream Kings to talk about here.
I mean, there's so many. Of course, there's iconic classics. We've talked about a few of them, but you also have people like, of course, Bruce Campbell. You have Chris Sarandon as well as one of my favorites. And you have William Ragsdale. And there was someone you mentioned earlier that I'm totally spacing now.
Corey Feldman.
Corey fucking Feldman.
Yeah.
The Frog Brothers.
You want to read this comic?
You did that so well. Yeah, he was. I mean, obviously the Frog Brother and the Lost Boys, but he also shifted over to Friday the 13th.
Yeah, so Corey Feldman, the Lost Boys and the Frog Brothers, and he's come back to play that role. Thankfully, it was beautiful to see him save those sequels. Mm-hmm. But my goodness, Tommy Jarvis, I think that's the role that stands out for me. Like, I love Lost Boys, I love the Frog Brothers, but there's something about him as Tommy Jarvis just hacking away at fucking Jason Voorhees, bringing down Jason once and for all in the final chapter, and just like really. Like, if you watch 1 through 4, that is a perfect ending to that fucking saga. And Corey Feldman's performance is a huge part of it. Let alone what he did in fucking Lost Boys and has done since, and so many amazing performances. Like, he and Corey Haim owned the 80s.
Yeah, the Coreys were everything.
They were, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, but the one, like, you kind of glossed over it, but the one that we're going to talk about in great detail is the fucking king himself. did we do to be so lucky to exist in a time where Bruce Campbell does horror movies in our
Right?
fucking timeline?
Oh, I know. And the fact that he's still doing stuff for Evil Dead. And I know there's some Bruce Campbell haters out there, and I don't really know enough, and I'm not getting into it. But I know that as fucking Ash, I mean, he's iconic. The chainsaw, this is my boomstick. You know, Army of Darkness was
Groovy.
fucking amazing.
Yeah. I don't know.
Oh my god, groovy. The groovy you got at the end of Evil Dead 2013, like the post credits, about shit my pants in the theater when I saw it.
I would have bought a ticket
fucking
just
excited.
for those 30 seconds.
Man.
Groovy.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and he's one of the most memorable roles for me, not just with Evil Dead, but Maniac Cop.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I love, like, we watched
We watched
Maniac
this on
Cop
Joe
1
Bob.
and 2
Yeah.
on Joe Bob, and just, I fucking love Maniac Cop. And
Yeah.
one of his first performances outside of Evil Dead, outside of Sam Raimi's projects, it was just spectacular to see him take on something as different as the Maniac Cop series. And, you know, the way he gets, you know, killed off, and the second one is just one of the greatest on-screen deaths I think I'll always remember. It's just beautiful the way it's done.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, like you mentioned, he will always be remembered as Ash. But
Sure.
there's you know, so many roles he's got. Everything Sam Raimi's done, Bruce Campbell's popped up
Yeah.
on in the Spider-Man movies, the Multiverse of Madness, of course.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, he's got Bubba Hotep, where he plays
Bubba
Elvis.
Hotep. Yeah, that movie's weird.
Yeah, it's, you know, he plays Elvis, and then you have the black man who plays John F. Kennedy, and they go out on fucking adventures.
Yep.
It's tremendous. Like, how can you not love that fucking movie? But yeah, Bruce Campbell is king. Like, when we say Final Boys and Scream Kings, when you think of just men in horror, who's the best fucking male protagonist? Who's the man of horror? The name you think of better be Bruce fucking Campbell.
Yeah, I agree. He's a king among kings.
He really is. And it's like that first movie alone, I think, constitutes him as just the king of horror. Then you factor in Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness and 2013, and now what we're going to see with Evil Dead Rise.
Yeah.
I mean, he, like you said, he's still doing shit. And then Ash versus Evil Dead, we can't even like forget that.
I was going to say, and even if it's still just Evil Dead up until the day he can't do it anymore, I don't care. Like,
No.
I just want all of it. And to me, I know I have to mention it. I know it's not horror, but Briscoe County Jr.
Briscoe County fucking
me-
Jr. Yes, I was
made
gonna,
me
if you didn't
fall
mention it, I
in
was.
love with him. I was like not even 10 years old, I think, when that shit was on TV. But I ate that show up.
Oh my gosh, it is.
And of course, but probably for them, it was a little more age appropriate than watching Evil Dead. But.
True. Yeah. Yeah, those movies are a tad bit rough. But yeah, Bruce was the one I think we have to thank above everybody else. Without him, you know, he paved the way for so many of these guys that we've talked about today. He is the originator of all of this. Like before him, the guys were always the villains. Like that's
like, what
horror
I mean.
movies.
You know?
Yeah.
A lot of the women were made out to be the victims, so you didn't have a lot of that. And, you know, kind of very briefly, but you had Jesse in Nightmare on Elm Street 2. He was kind of one of those that introduced us to a male antagonist that had to survive, you know, Freddy Krueger. But there were also so many others. You know, you were talking about these ultimate Scream Kings, and I almost joked and said it's Lee Wanell, right? Because I fucking love him, and to me, he is a Scream King.
I mean, his
not
performances
only,
alone,
not just her performances, but he's a fucking writer for half of this shit. So, you know, he created one of my favorite movies, Saw. He gives me my favorite movie ending with Saw. You know, he plays Specs in Insidious, and he's done all these other things.
He was, you know, he helped create the Insidious franchise.
Yeah.
He directed the third film. Lee Wanell definitely deserves a lot of credit and deserves a shout out in this episode because, you know, you're right. He does have some great performances in Insidious, in Saw, but it is how instrumental he's been behind the scenes as a writer and a director and producer and all of that now. To help bring these characters to life in a new, fascinating. I mean, he and James Wan helped kick off a fucking revolution of these new horror films. You know,
100%.
You know, they broke the cycle of these late '90s, early 2000s. glossy, clean fucking horror movies and said, no, we're going to get back to that nitty gritty, that dirty.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. And thank you for that, because they, them and Rob Zombie kind of deserve that credit for reviving that kind of dirtiness in horror. So, he is a hero of horror, Zoid, for sure.
Yes, he is. My next hero is our recent double time final boy, Daniel Kaluuya.
Daniel Kaluuya?
Because he survives Get Out and Nope.
Yeah,
So
Daniel
keep
Kaluuya.
it coming, man.
Yeah, Daniel Kaluuya took my breath away in Get Out. And I mean, it just like that performance, like one of the most believable, just most vulnerable on-screen portrayals of a character you'll ever see. And it's like, for him to be this strong, intimidating, man, and to play somebody so vulnerable and so
whenever
so
it like
open
flashes to him
weak,
being a kid, it does. And we've been recently watching a show on Shudder, again, not sponsored, hit us up, Shudder, but the 101 scariest movie moments. And I feel like with every time they get to a new number, I'm super excited. I'm like, oh yeah, hell yeah. But I think in the last episode they talked about the sink scene whenever she's stirring her coffee or teacup with the spoon, and she tells him to sink, and by then he's already paralyzed. His eyes are wide and there's tears coming down his face, and it's just such an intense, terrifying scene. I remember I didn't see it right when it came out. That's when I would have loved to see it at theaters, and it just absolutely shook me. That movie made me feel things I never thought I would feel, and every person in that movie does fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's one of those films that transcends horror and really resonates. It's just a solid film. It's one of the best made films that I think we've had in the last 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, I think it deserves all the credit and accolades that it received. I mean, he won the fucking Oscar for it, for writing it. I mean, he created something beautiful.
Even with the recent release of Nope, I see a lot of people whenever they talk about ranking it, and they're like, it's almost not fair to his other movies because I feel like nothing will ever be as amazing as Get Out.
Right, nothing will ever be as amazing as Get Out, but Get Out, Us, and Nope are all three very distinctly different films. Like, I don't feel like he's the first director that I can remember where I can't rank his films because to me, first off, there's only 3 of them. Secondly, they're all 3 just different pieces of film.
Yeah.
Like different
it's
genres of fiction.
It's not like, hey, rank Halloween. It's like, I can't rank his movies. It's almost hard. It's too impossible for me. Because the more I sit there and think about it, the more I'm like, but this one had. And, we went and saw Nope in theaters, and I had no idea what I was in for. And there's scenes in that movie that made me so uncomfortable. And just his performance is phenomenal. Like, those two are like a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
And I just want him in all of Jordan Peele's movies at this point. And I love seeing how different, his characters can be. Obviously, he's not just done horror. We've seen him in other things. Yeah. But him in horror, it's just, he's
of course,
perfect.
he won the Oscar for another role from that was not horror, and it was great to see him come back to horror. He is somebody that like Jordan Peele called him his De Niro to his Scorsese, which I think was a little funny that Peele compared himself to Scorsese in an indirect way, but we'll let that one slide. But Jordan Peele I called Daniel Kaluuya his Robert De Niro, which is such high praise. Yeah. And I think when all is said and done, the fact that he's already got an Oscar, the fact that he has gone back to horror and said, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to do the kind of movies I want to do. I don't care. It's not, Oscar or not, I'm doing these movies. And it's great to see that he is still going to be that guy who's going to pop up and who knows what next. Right. And it's going to be great to watch his career trajectory, the way it's going to go. Yeah. Daniel Kaluuya, but I don't think we can really get through this episode without mentioning at least one more guy. And
I don't know. I've got at least 3 more guys.
okay,
down.
yeah. So we're on the same page. We've got. I thought we were getting to the end of our list here, and we're only getting revved up.
Yeah,
So
I mean, there was a lot to talk about. I feel like we went a little ham, even more though so than the Final Girls. In the Final Girls, there was a lot of shit we didn't even get to.
only scratching the surface.
Yeah, but I'm hoping. I think I know who you're talking about. I'm gonna take a guess. Is it Justin Long?
It is Justin Long because Barbarian alone, his most recent performance, just left me fucking floored.
Which we talked about recently on our double feature episode.
Right.
So go listen to that.
Yeah, go listen to our double feature review of Barbarian and Pearl. We talk all about what Justin Long made us feel in that movie.
Yeah.
But he has some other terrific horror performances. One that I want to mention that I'm just going to throw out an underrated one right now, and that's Afterlife, which is a movie from 2009 that stars Liam Neeson, Christina Ricci, as well as Justin Long.
This is one you actually introduced me to.
It is one of my absolute favorite.
It's a
movies.
wild movie.
It's so bizarre. It's so out there. But Justin Long really brings this great likability and vulnerability to this performance. He's a man who his girlfriend, his fiance, recently passed away, and he's trying to move on, but he can't. And if you watch the movie, you'll see why he can't move on. It's terrific, but it's one of his strongest performances as a leading man because he's so emotional throughout the whole movie. He has to bring this just sadness to the role.
I mean, I feel like though at this point, does Justin Long ever do a movie where he survives or has a happy ending? Because
never.
In Barbarian, he's a dick anyway, so we didn't really care what happened no matter what.
Yeah.
But you have, you're talking about Afterlife, but you also have Jeepers Creepers. He bites the dust in that. And probably the worst of all, Tusk.
Yes. Tusk. If you have not seen Tusk, please stop this episode and go watch it, because we're about to say some fucked up shit that out of context you won't understand, but you will understand if you've seen it.
Yeah.
When
Pause,
Justin
go
Long,
watch, come back, comment.
when Justin Long is turned into a fucking walrus, it is a moment in film I never thought I'd fucking see.
It's
and
almost
it is
laughable, but also I was like screaming at the
It may
TV.
be one of the most tragic fates. When people say, what horror movie has a fate worse than death? That one.
That's it. Yeah.
Fuck
because
that.
honestly, there's so many movies where, and I would love to sit down and talk about what would be the worst fate from half the people in horror movies.
That's another
episode. Thanks. But the fact that you have to live as someone who's been body modded into a walrus, and you have your own like play area and they throw you fish. I'm sorry. I would rather be human centipeded into a fucking loop than do that.
I would rather get American Married.
Well, duh.
When I say that, I mean,
honestly, when you look at
I
it,
would rather have my
does
fucking
is
arms and
simple.
legs cut off and hung from a fucking suspension hook than fucking live as a walrus. Like, I know. Fuck that. That is.
It's pretty terrifying when you think about it.
But Justin Long in that fucking role.
He fucking sells it,
like,
dude.
I'm sorry. I don't think
Need I remind any of you guys, this is a fucking Kevin Smith movie.
Right. This is the fucker who did Clerks and Chasing Amy.
Right.
He did dick and fart jokes, and now he's putting people
Jay
in
and
fucking
Silent
walrus
Bob.
costumes. And this is what we're fucking getting, and I love it. And we're getting a sequel too, mind you. And I think Justin
recent
Long has already said
announcement, right?
he's fucking signed on.
Oh my god. I'm here for it, but see, Tusk just fucks with me. And there's so many people that I've seen, anytime something comes up about it, they're just like, oh my god, this movie was fucking awful. But they're saying it's awful because it was uncomfortable.
It is so uncomfortable.
Yeah,
when I say he became a walrus, I'm not fucking exaggerating. He fucking stuffs a man into a walrus suit made of human flesh.
Well, not just that, but again, he body mods him.
He does. Like,
and with that, I'm just gonna we're gonna stop with Tusk. Go watch it. Be traumatized with us.
But other role.
But also watch Drag Me to Hell, which is another sad ending. And even though it's like a 30-second hit you upside the head ending that you don't see coming,
you will never
Justin
see it
Long's performance at the end of that is yet again, phenomenal.
Yeah.
I fucking love him, but he's tragic as hell. Justin Long movies are sad movies.
They are sad movies, but he really is one of those guys. I said this on Twitter not too long ago. I said he has not appeared in a bad fucking horror movie.
No.
And it's like, even though you and I despise Jeepers Creepers due to the director and
but
the
as
awful
a
shit
movie,
that he
I
did,
thought it was a great movie.
The movie itself, phenomenal, great classic horror.
Yeah.
And Justin Long's performance as Derry one that I think our people from our generation will forever remember.
Yeah.
He was kind of that awkward, gawky kind of fucking teen actor, like when he was younger. Like, I don't think people understand that he was on a show.
He did some of those weird teen movies and shit like that too.
But he did a show called Ed. He did a movie called Dodgeball where he was younger, and you know, and it's like, but he was just kind of that awkward, nerdy, geeky teen, and now he's this kind of horror leading man because he's just got this. And I hate to say it, but like I mentioned earlier, and you've mentioned it too, he's just got this sadness about him now, and he's does. Like, which is funny because he seems like he's a genuinely affable kind of guy,
right? Yeah.
But he does play these very dour kind of characters.
Maybe that's why he does some of the fun little happy movies that he does. He kind of gets a little break in between.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, Justin Long deserves some credit. And you said you got some more people for us to talk about.
I do.
Let's hear it.
So one that I've been really, really excited to mention, and this is another R.I.P., is our good man Anton.
Oh, Anton Yelchin, yes. Anton Yelchin, he's done some very interesting movies and interesting roles. I remember one of the first movies I saw him in wasn't even horror. It was a comedy called Charlie Bartlett. But I don't think it was... I think we all kind of came to respect him when he was in the Star Trek movies. But for horror fans, it wasn't until he took on the role of Charlie Brewster in the Fright Night remake from 2011, where we all came to really love and appreciate him in our community.
Yeah. And I mean, I was excited about it, and we talked a bit about it on our vampire episode, but I kind of introduced you to Fright Night, and so also seeing you see the reboot, remake, whatever you want to call it, from 2011 was a fun experience. Of course, you get the cameo with Chris Sarandon as one of the drivers on the highway.
Yeah.
But there's something so much that I love about the remake, because it just does bring something into the new generation. It's not the whole 80s vibe.
Yeah.
You know,
it was a terrific 80s movie.
Yeah.
But they revived it in a very meaningful way. It felt very 2011. I mean, it really does. Yeah.
It really did. Down to David Tennant as Peter Vincent being like a kind of rip-off magic show guy, but who actually does believe in like occult stuff.
Right.
It's so fun.
Yeah, it takes what the original did and just kind of expands on it in a way that like you wouldn't think would be possible. It really like you watch Fright Night and you're like, oh wow, this is kind of, I get it. I've seen the joke. What else is there? But the 2011 remake really introduced us to something different. Colin Farrell playing the new Jerry Dandridge kind of, and bringing something like that to the role. But Anton, one of his strengths has always been this. He's got this likability, even though he can be but he can also be kind of prickish.
Yeah.
And that's what he brings that, if you like that movie I mentioned earlier, Charlie Bartlett, he's kind of a little dick in the movie. But then it's like, then you watch him in Fright Night, and he's kind of a little dick again, but there's this humanity to him. Yeah. There's this, you still like him. And then you have him.
Like the hero him whenever he's in Terminator, and although it's on my to be watched list, we've never seen The Green Room. And I know that's another horror movie that he did, and I've heard a lot of people,
Is that the one with Patrick fucking Stewart?
Yeah, it's Patrick Stewart.
Everybody says that's so good, and
it's like a punk rock band playing at like a club, and it's
they end up with like neo-Nazis,
like neo-Nazis.
Yeah. We'll be the first to admit we haven't seen Green Room. We really need to, because we do love Anton Yelchin's work, and it's definitely high on our list. But he was also in Only Lovers Left Alive. Which I absolutely loved him in that movie.
God, I love that.
And he's another tragic character. Yeah. And it's so.
He's kind of like a vampire familiar.
Right. He's kind of a familiar. He's kind of the Guillermo. Of Tom Hiddleston's character.
Yeah.
And it's funny that we mentioned What We Do in the Shadows, because Jim Jarmusch, the director of Only Lovers Left Alive, and Tilda Swinton both appeared in What We Do in the Shadows.
Yep.
You got to believe that if Anton Yelkin were alive, maybe we would have gotten a cameo from him in What We Do in the Shadows.
That would have been an absolute delight.
I'm telling you,
he could have been a familiar. I would have been so all
right?
over
Could
that.
you imagine? Like, that's an episode that I would have loved to have seen.
Yeah.
But yes, like we mentioned, unfortunately, we lost him to a very tragic accident. Several years back, and but his legacy lives on with movies like Fright Night, Only Lovers Left Alive.
Because so many people adore him, even if it's just for those few roles.
Odd Thomas was another kind of sci-fi kind of movie that he did that people, really connected with on him. I know that was a literary character that he was able to bring to life. So, there's a special connection there. He was just one of those special, one-of-a-kind actors that, you look back on in this generation and you're like, wow, we only got him for a very short period of time, but the body of work that he's able to leave behind is just stellar. And, the few roles that he did for the horror community, we will always love and appreciate and respect that. And, definitely one of those rest in peace. We're happy we had him as long as we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, you say that and it's kind of a somber thing, and it's made me think of a interview that I just saw, and I don't exactly know when it was, with someone who I was about ready to talk about next, who I adore and I feel like is also going to leave a lot behind, but who's also, every interview I see, he's absolutely fascinating. He's the father to an amazing actress in Stranger Things. I'm talking Ethan Hawke.
Oh yeah, Ethan Hawke is one that he's a horror heavyweight for sure with a lot of the roles that we've seen, especially lately.
Yeah.
He's I think
Black
Phone
Phone,
is
the Grabber.
The one. Yep. The Grabber and
Yes.
the Black Phone, I think, is the one that it's on the tip of everybody's
1000%.
tongues. Oh,
fucking love that movie.
What can you say about that movie that hasn't already been said? It is.
Oh God.
It was something
so
else.
good.
It was supernatural, but it
I
had
also
elements of
love
realism.
That there's something kind of positive through to the end of it with the development with the kids. Like it's not really a movie about a killer. It's a movie about the kids, really, when you come down to it.
It really is, yeah.
I think a lot of people were kind of upset. They felt like it was supposed to be a scarier movie by the trailers and stuff like that, and probably more killer focused or action with the killer. But honestly, you see him on screen way less than the main boy in the movie. But it's still such an amazing performance by Ethan Hawke.
Well, I think people thought it was going to be the start of like this new slasher,
right?
But it's not. No, it's.
Well, you see him with the black balloons at the back of the big black van. You're like, oh, this is.
He's a great horror character, and I think everybody's just so franchise thirsty right now that it's like they really just want anything to think.
Deal with it, fuckers. You have Terrifier now,
right? But Ethan Hawke and the Grabber definitely had that potential, and I think it's because. A
lot of people want just more of it.
Right. Well, but it's again, and it's like we're talking about with Ethan Hawke, his performance alone is something that made it so terrifying, which is so funny because he's another one of those guys who comes off so likable and just such a incredible human being. Yeah. That to see him play someone so violent, disgusting, is just that alone is fascinating enough, and that was a reason for me to buy a ticket.
Right, and not to mention, too, I feel like you've made it as a movie when you're at Universal's Halloween Horror Nights, too.
Yeah, 100%. Black Phone was another one, but Sinister was another one recently that we got from him. I say recently, it's like 10 years ago at this point. My God. But yeah, Sinister.
It feels like yesterday.
It does feel like yesterday.
Ethan Hawke in a cardigan trying to solve murders.
Oh my God, I would kill for his cardigan collection in that movie.
Absolutely. It's fucking delightful.
Sinister is a bizarre movie, but the thing that I think really stands out about it and his performance is it's literally one of the most terrifying movies. Like, scientists literally did a study to check people's heart rate and blood pressure during horror movies. Yeah. And I think they'd sampled like 50 horror movies, so a good sampling of it. And Sinister was the one that got everybody's blood pumping the most.
And I can see why, because that opening scene is really
the opening scene
alone,
yes. But Ethan Hawke's performance, how terrified he feels in those most intense moments, when we meet the Bagul. It's the Bagul. He's here. But he brings so much to that movie, and I think while we love James Ransone and his performance in the second movie, there was something missing in Sinister 2, and I think a lot of it was what Ethan Hawke brought to his role in that first film.
Yeah, and it's funny. I don't know why I just put this together, but the fact that he was in Black Phone as well as the brother James Ransone.
Oh yeah, well, I mean it's Scott Derrickson. I mean, so
Right.
it's
I
Sinister,
know.
it's Black Phone. I
My
mean, it's
brain just went click.
yeah. Oh,
Oh,
there's the final
yeah.
piece of the puzzle. They're all there now.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, with those and him being in it, he's kind of a Scream King too, and
James
I
Ransone,
love
yep,
him.
absolutely. He deserves so much credit for what he's done in horror as well.
Yeah, he
But
has.
Ethan Hawke. Then you factor in The Purge.
Oh, I love The Purge. I mean, and I know that they went wild and crazy, and you got all these cool masks and stuff. But the first movie is so uncomfortable and unnerving when you watch it.
It is.
And yet again, I think he's another just like chill, happy cardigan wearing dad. But they're rich, you know. And he does an amazing performance in that. But you also have Daybreakers, which I think we kind of touched on in the vampire episode. And
Love Daybreakers.
I'm
that movie
always
doesn't get enough fucking credit.
It doesn't. That's like one of those when horror movie challenges. It's like the most underrated movie. I feel like I would say Daybreakers a lot.
Daybreakers, just for the fact that you get fucking Willem Dafoe going like, we're the folks with the crossbows.
Yeah.
Like that alone, fucking dude. I saw that in the trailer and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm there. Fucking Willem Dafoe and vampires.
Oh, yeah.
But Ethan
It's
Hawke,
such a cool movie, and
Yes.
I'm always a fan of seeing like a new concept for vampires. So like trying to unvampire yourself. Come on, that's
vampires
cool.
are the majority, and Sam Neill is your vampire president. What the fuck? Why has this movie not been made sooner?
Yeah.
I loved Daybreaker so
Me
much.
too.
That was one I like. I didn't see it in theaters, but I remember the minute it was available on home video, I bought it, watched it, obsessed about it for the next 13 years. So
Yeah.
here we are.
He's delightful.
Oh, and Ethan Hawke playing the main character, who's who converts himself from vampire to human. Just incredible story, because most of it's like it's the story in reverse. Normally we see human become vampire. This time we see vampire become human. It's and he plays it so perfectly that it's like it's an absurd, silly concept, and it's just one of those late 2000s special effects heavy movies.
Yeah.
But he does bring some humanity to it with
does.
Willem Dafoe and Sam Neill in supporting roles.
Yeah, I would say the cast is great, and I mean, I feel like I could go on even more about him, but most of it's not even horror. But he's done so much amazing in film that I would love to see him do more horror. I know everyone's like, oh, well, we could get another Black Phone if they did this or this or this. It's like, would I love to see him come back as the grabber? Yes.
Yeah.
I would love to see more of that character explored.
Yeah, I think after Hellraiser 5, I think Scott Derrickson's done with sequels. I don't think he's gonna do any.
Well, he needs to get back on it.
Yes. So moving on to our next Scream King final boy.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to circle back around and talk a little bit about some of the horror shows that we have, and obviously one of the big one is American Horror Story.
It's given us some terrific Scream Kings and final boys.
Yeah, we've had Evan Peters, who's had an amazing career, but I mainly really, like, everyone knows Evan Peters, everyone knows Tate Langdon, but I want to talk about Cody Fern.
I mean, we've got some great guys. We got Cody Fern. We've got Finn Whitrock.
Finn Whitrock's a delight.
Yeah, Cody Fern,
and
Finn
he
Whitrock.
started with Halloween Town High.
Yes.
I don't know if that was his first one. I'm just saying.
That had to be his first movie. He was baby Finn Whitrock at that point.
He was.
But we've also got Matt Bomer in that show. But yes, as you mentioned, Cody Fern. Oh, Wes Bentley deserves a shout out as well. But yes, Cody Fern is the one that we have become a really big fan of in this house. He's appeared in Apocalypse, 1984. He was in Death Valley. I believe we did not watch Death Valley. But
no, we watched the first episode and dipped.
Yeah, that was probably one of the shittiest seasons of American Horror Story. That's another story for another time. I think we'll do a whole fucking breakdown on AHS at one point. But no, Cody Fern is somebody who has come along recently, and he is first off, he's one of the most beautiful fucking human beings alive.
Literally, yes.
It's not often you just see somebody come on screen, especially a man, and you're just like, you are gorgeous.
Yeah.
And he really is. He's a fucking one of a kind in the looks department.
Yeah,
but
there's something
his
about the
performances.
looks that he can serve. Because my favorite, and the one that I posted to our TikTok today, is him in 84, where he's got the super short 80 shorts on,
Yes.
and like the sweatband and like the workout outfit. I fucking love that season anyway, but he's so delightful.
Well, and he brings this vulnerability to his roles, and like everybody I think will, what stands out to them is like, oh, he's this cocky douche in 84, when he's powerful Michael in Apocalypse. But for me, it's the vulnerability, like when he first wakes up in Apocalypse, and he's like went from a little boy to a grown man, and he just doesn't understand, and he's confused. And then in 84, when he's being hunted by this fucking killer and stuff. It's like those moments are when I look at Cody Fernan, I'm like, holy shit, this kid's got fucking talent.
Yeah, I agree. And I think probably my favorite is him as, basically the fucking Antichrist in Apocalypse.
Oh, Michael was just one of the best roles, period.
It's just pretty. Like, he's serving like Interview with the Vampire looks.
A little bit, little Lestat.
His hair's kind of long. He has this pretty like black coat on and everything. It's just, he's a delight.
He's an androgynous sex god. Let's call him what he is.
Yes, literally. And I want to see more of him. I know I've said that a lot this episode, but he's awesome. I would love to see a lot of these people come out of American Horror Story and do some more like movies. Just because
what I like about it is it's like a real movie.
God. But shit, you just threw me way off.
That's what we do around here at Horror Zoid, folks.
Yeah. But I mean, and you brought it up a great point. There are so many people in American Horror Story that have kind of become iconic just from American Horror Story.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. Like Wes Bentley obviously was one that jumped out to me because I remember him as the weird kid from American Beauty. And then to see him kind of break out, and he's done movies like I know you haven't watched it yet, but P2. He plays this amazing villain in P2, one of the best villains I've ever seen on fucking screen. He's just so psychotic.
Right.
And then, but yeah, his roles in American Horror Story is Edward Mordrake, the guy with the face on the back of his head.
Yes.
One of my absolute favorite performances by him. Hotel, where he plays the detective who's hunting himself as a serial killer, which makes no fucking sense, but it is what it is.
Probably one of my favorites. I love Hotel, and I love that whole when he finds the weird room of like collectible things he's taken, like the trophies.
It's so just what the fuck when you watch it. It's just
it's an interesting
but strangely
one,
enough, for American Horror Story, it's one of the least what the fuck endings you could imagine, because they have.
And he's also in Ghost Rider, so Nicolas Cage.
Yes, he was.
Relations.
Yes, he was. Yes, I love. Yeah, Wes Bentley deserves a shout out too. While we're talking about these American Horror Story fellas.
Yeah, and God, I'm just kind of like looking through like some of the cast, and I'm thinking, of course, you have Dylan McDermott from the first season.
Dylan McDermott.
But, you have Zachary Quinto, who's fucking a delight. Dennis O'Hare, probably one of my favorites, and I got damn near any
while
season.
We're talking about Dennis O'Hare, I got to say, there was an episode in the beginning, like this is a while back now, where I said Jim O'Hare, and I meant Dennis O'Hare. And I want to correct myself so that nobody fucking calls me out on this, if we keep doing this and somebody's like, oh, did you realize that episode 2 or 3 that you actually said Jim O'Hare? I know Jim O'Hare is the guy from Parks and Rec. Dennis O'Hare is the guy I meant all those episodes back. So retcon, bitches.
I'm glad that you've clearly been shame spiraling long enough to remember that you fucked up.
It's been a few months. But I had to correct myself. I would not be able to retain my journalistic integrity if I did not correct myself in that moment.
Sure.
Now, I don't know if you intended on going too in depth with him. We kind of touched upon him earlier, but I at least want to give a shout out to Chris Sarandon as another guy who has appeared in so many horror movies that we love.
Yeah, we very briefly mentioned him.
He's the original Jerry Dandridge in Fright Night. He is it's a cameo in Fright Night 2011. He is the detective in Child's Play.
Hell yeah.
So 2 big Tom Holland roles right there. Obviously the voice of Jack Skellington in fucking Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
Danny Elfman did the singing, but Chris Sarandon brought Jack to life in those speaking roles.
Yeah.
So Chris Sarandon, another one I got to give a shout out. I know we are hitting a long point on this episode. I think we're going to probably put a bow on it right there. I think we've
pretty much talked about most of the ones that we really love and that we really are passionate about. I know that there's going to be so many more and a lot of new ones, and I know that there's probably plenty out there we've completely forgotten because there's just so many great people to talk about.
That's why they made part 2s, baby.
Part 2s, baby. We say that a lot. And that's okay.
PTB part 2s, baby. That's what we're here for.
No one's saying PTB. Sorry, Dickie.
It'll be one of those t-shirt ideas that we'll leave in the wastebasket.
Yeah.
But yes, so thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for talking Final Boys, Scream Kings. We were happy to show the dudes some love after talking all about Final Girls and Scream Queens. So
love our horror dudes.
We do love the men of the horror genre. And with that being said, we are going to leave you with this. There's no ice cream in your fucking future.
Tutti fucking fruity.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes drop every weekend. Follow us on TikTok at HorrorZoidPod and send emails to horrorzoidpod@gmail.com with your thoughts, questions, and stories for us to read on a future episode. To all our Zoids out there, stay scary.